Hello everyone, my name is Rob Krug. I'm a senior security engineer for Dell SonicWall. I'm here with you today to talk about something very fun, or maybe scary depending on your perspective. I'm going to talk to you today about safeguarding your network from today's threat landscape that's taking place on the World Wide Web, sometimes referred to as the Wild Wild West. We're going to go through some of the scarier things that are taking place, some of the breaches you may have heard about, some of the ones you haven't heard about. We'll see some of the tactics that hackers use to manipulate your users or compromise your network security. From there, we'll jump into some relatively easy methods, easily deployed methods that you can use to safeguard your network and your users, your company's data, and most importantly, the bottom line. Let's jump into it right now. Some of the breaches that you've heard about in the past year may have been Heartbleed, would have been Poodle, Freak, Shell Shock, ransomware. These are just some of the things that go bump on the net on a regular basis. A lot of people see these in the headlines. Some of them even make mainstream media. Things like the Target breach, the Sony hack, Home Depot, the Office of Personnel Management for the federal government, IRS. These are just some of the breaches that have taken place that have shocked the world. But they don't really take effect. Most people don't take into account the ones that actually take place on a daily basis that are impacting the world, the net over. From that perspective, let's take a quick snapshot and see what's taking place. Looking at the attacks in motion, we can see some of the breaches that are taking place or some of the attempts that are taking place with certain internet tools. Certain websites post this information as they monitor it in their own servers, like this website, map.ipviking.com. They show you real time some of the attacks that they're able to detect and see in motion and put an nice little graphical display up. This represents less than 1% of the breaches that are taking place. It's actually kind of scary when you think about it. There are over 200,000 new threats on the web every single day of the week, and that's twice on Sunday. Talking about some of those, let's take a look into some of the breaches that have been popular this year. One of the ones you want to look at is the health records. It's really, really a huge number when you think about it. According to HHS Gov, the Health and Human Services of the United States federal government, and this year alone, just in 2015, there have been over 111 million personal medical records compromised. This means that almost 1 in 3 Americans have had their medical history files compromised or stolen on the web by hackers. This isn't loss from technology failures, hard drive failures, lost laptops. This is actually from security breaches. Why do hackers want to compromise medical records, right? A lot of people say, well, what's so worrisome about that? Think about it. All of your personal data is in your medical record. Your date of birth, your address, your mother's maiden name. It's how easily, all the easily provided information that a hacker needs to steal your identity. And why is that? Let's take a look. This particular image is from a black hat website. It's on the World Wide Web, where hackers are offering out your personal information. You can buy a low-level credit card for $10, a gold card for $20. But for $100, at least a couple of years ago, $100 would have bought your health insurance information. Think of that. A credit card is only worth $20, but your health information is worth $100. Why? Because that's how I steal your personal identity. Right? The next would be the corporate data, your corporate email. Stealing, accessing your email, compromising your email security so that I can send emails out to your customers, your clients, your business associates, and pretending to be you. This would help them fall for tricks that I'm going to show you in the next few slides. Let's talk about some of these breach scenarios that hackers actually use today. The first one I want to talk about is the phish. It's very old. It's been around for a long, long time. I mean, how many of you have won the African lottery? How many of you had a rich relative pass away that you never heard of who's left you a huge inheritance if you can just manage to get it out of a foreign government economy and have it wire transferred to a U.S. bank? It happens all the time. People actually do fall for these attacks, despite the fact that they're huge jokes that follow in their footsteps. The next one that's a relative of the phish is the spear phish. It's a little bit more personal. It's how hackers are using your corporate email, your personal email, your social media information to compromise your friends, compromise you, and to fooling you into thinking that something else is going on. Meaning that you stumble upon a website. For example, our user John here, he goes and logs in and gets an email from his bank. It says, hey, John, we need you to confirm your personal identity. Please enter your username, your password, your PIN number, and hit accept to prove it's you. That wasn't from his bank. That was a hacker sending a spearfish attack specifically to John because he identified John as a member of that bank. It's very easy to do these days with the way that all the records are posted online. The next one I want to talk about is social engineering. This is the first method of any kind of any kind of a hack attack on any kind of network. Social engineering has been around since day one of the black hat hacker days. It's one that's been around. It's in the first chapter of every How to Be a Hacker handbook you'll ever buy or find online. That's the first chapter of how to be social engineering. It's a con. It's a con. It's manipulating you into thinking that something is going on or make you fall for the trick. Right? Click this link. Check out this news story. Hey, here it is. And you click a little link. The next thing you know, you're compromised. Taking into account one of the larger breaches that made the news last year, Ashley Madison. Ashley Madison got compromised and all the emails and usernames and passwords got breached on that site. Now, this wasn't a very huge danger, well, unless you count the 15,000 .mil and .gov email addresses. Those are military and government-related email accounts. Now, if I was to compromise and get my hands on those emails or that email address, I could then send out spearfish attacks to those users and say, hey, click me for if you're lonely tonight, and you click on the link, and the next thing you know, they're breached. It happens all the time. This is how incidents of OPM and IRS took place. It was because of personal webmail and a spearfish attack. The users never even realized that they were clicking on malware. The next breach scenario is the spyware. It's very self-explanatory. Everyone's heard of spyware. They steal your data, they steal your identity, they find out what you like, they marketing data, it could be adware, all kinds of things. They track your preferences, and then they know how to direct marketing or malicious content direct to you. This is basically, or compromising your network. Spyware infesting your network and scanning for files like passwords, credit card information, finance data, and then sending that data out to a website for a hacker to collect later. Happens all the time. Most of the networks that are infected by spyware fail to miss one simple thing: scanning outbound traffic. Spyware's on the network sending traffic out. Are you scanning your outbound traffic? The next breach I want to talk about is the waterhole breach. This is just a fancy play on words to describe something that happens in the animal kingdom. Much like the predator that stakes out the water hole and waits for the prey, that would be you. From going down to get a sip of water, the next thing you know, bam, croc takes you under. Happens the same way on the internet. You go to a legitimate website that's been compromised. You may not realize it's been compromised, and all of a sudden the code that's built into that website executes locally on your hard drive. Next thing you know, you're infected with ransomware, a Trojan, a botnet, and hackers have taken control of your network. And before you say that, oh, I don't go to bad websites, famous last words, by the way, realize that when you go to a website, you're not just loading content from one source. Take into account a site like msnbc.com. When you go to that website and it loads up, you think you're just at one URL, www.msnbc.com. What you don't see in the background is the content that's being pulled, like ads or clicks that are the click.nets, the ad.nets, things like that. The little ads at the bottom that show up on MSNBC.com or Fox News or CNN. All those little stories, all those little graphics load from other websites. Now, those websites may be obviously legitimate and or obnoxious, but what happens if they've been compromised? So you click on one of those links on the side or you load the page, and before you know it, your browser is not touching the one website. It's actually talking to hundreds. You can see this with various web utilities like Lightbeam and others, where you can actually see in your browser all the different sites you're going to. Are you looking at all those sites today? Are you now confident that you don't go to bad websites? Consider it. The next breach that I would like to talk to you about today is the litigation. Now, this one is basically a precautionary breach that you want to protect your business from the bottom line, being infected by lawsuits and things of that nature. From that standpoint, I want you to take into account a little thing called content filtering. It's important. Don't laugh. All right. So, with that said, answer this question for me. How many of you would rather show your friends and family your entire internet search history or live near an active volcano? An online poll was pretty clear. 61% would rather live near an active volcano than show their friends and family their search history. Why is that? They were obviously doing things that were up to no good or things they weren't proud of. Now, as they're surfing those sites, Who else is aware of it? Take into account this nice little scenario. Someone's doing something on a computer they're not supposed to. For example, a live news broadcast from a couple years ago, but it's still relevant today. Gentleman in the back here, he's actually doing something he's probably not supposed to while the anchor is talking about interest rates on the main screen. All of a sudden, everyone realizes what's being shown in the back screen, and people get offended. People are afraid. His boss says, "Oh, what are you doing?" But it's too late. He's caught. He's busted on primetime TV. Right? Hopefully he wasn't at ashleymadison.com. Now, as he was surfing through that, he got caught. Someone gets offended. Next thing you know, in come the attorneys. Here's where your bottom line gets affected. For all of those that are in K through 12 schools or dealing with anything like SIPA, that's the Child Internet Protection Act, take into account something like this. This is something that you definitely don't want happening in your network. A live broadcast or a presentation, much like I'm delivering to you today. And up instead of these nice, wonderful slides, up comes a porn site that shows some hardcore porn to a young audience. That can get you in a lot of trouble, maybe even some jail time. Certainly going to ruin your reputation, certainly may lead to some lawsuits, and that will impact the bottom line. So content filtering, absolutely a must. Now let's talk about another little breach that you want to be aware of today, is the compromising of your credentials. Keeping your username and your password secure. For example, if you look here, Taylor Swift has a nice little saying. This is from years ago. This is from 2011 at the DEF CON convention. She literally said, "Why compromise networks when you can compromise the people that run them? Networks are hard, people are soft." That's the social engineering attack. That's where they're going after your users. They're going after your soft targets. They're compromising those usernames and passwords. Where they show, as of last year, the most common password on the internet was Mustang. You can actually see this information on the World Wide Web, on various news sources. And this is the information that hackers take advantage of. If you want to see how easy it is, go to, or how secure your password is, you're welcome to go to this little website right here, www.netreaperlab.com/password. It'll actually show you how easy it is to compromise a password once you type it in. It's pretty cool. It's a good way to measure your security. Now, the next thing we're going to talk about is some of the soft targets that Taylor Swift was talking about. This will be some fun. So first up, the last thing you want on your user network is this little handy dandy book. Walk around your office and see if any of your employees have this on their desk. It's the Internet Address Password Logbook. Certainly something that you'd want to look for. The other thing is your social media posts, where you have a credit card number posted on Facebook, where a mother was so proud of her son, she posted a picture of his card. If you'll see here, the very next post was, "Thank you for my first car and everything on eBay." So basically, you want to be aware of what your users are posting. Are they taking screenshots of confidential data in the office and posting it on social media? Another one, we've all seen it, the sticky note with the username and password on the laptop. Something you want to look out for, right? Everyone's seen that one. Of course, criminals do dumb things too on the internet, as we've recently seen. Love to post their victories and everything else. Next thing you know, they're twittering with the cops and saying, "No, you can't catch me," and the cops use it to find where they're at. They're not the brightest bunch, right? And of course, the Twitter exploit right here, another attempt of social engineering. You'll see here, is your password secure? Enter your username and password to find out. Maybe even look like the Twitter website. That's a spearfish attack. They send it to the Twitter users that they find online. They send it to them and say, "Hey, is this your username and password?" And confirm it, see how secure it is. You need to confirm your identity. They fall for it all the time. And of course, this nice little ad I found on the bottom of an iPad where it said, "Has your credit card number been stolen on the internet? Enter the number and the expiration date to check it now." That seems legit. Now you know why the credit cards are only $10 on the hacker websites. And of course, news anchors, the news anchor exploit, where the gentleman held up, the news anchor actually held up a Bitcoin, flashed it to the camera, much like I'm standing in front of now, and a hacker took a screenshot with his phone on his HD TV and walked away with the gentleman's Bitcoin. It happens that quick. You want to be aware of the new technology and how it can impact your business. And of course, if you have any questions on how other scams, you're welcome to send me a check for $499. I'll be more than happy to tell you how the rest of the scams happen. Of course, truth is always stranger than fiction. You'll see this in major motion picture movies from Hollywood and on TV shows like the movie Black Hat, where the hacker plugs in a thumb drive and compromises the bank. Or you see on NCIS where the military contractor has been exploited by malware embedded in a PDF, or where you do a simple search and can see where everybody's credit history or all their registration information all in a simple keyword search on a government terminal. Is it that hard, or is it that easy? And of course, movies like Mission Impossible, where you can actually see where they jump through walls and buildings and plug in a thumb drive and compromise the security of any enterprise. It's actually that easy. So let's take a look at that. How many of you like to go to coffee houses or sandwich shops, jump online, get some work done during lunch? I'm sure you do. I do all the time. So how many of you have actually walked around and actually taken a look at what's going on in those particular coffee houses? You always see people in there busy, they're working on their iPads, their laptops, their other mobile devices, and they're surfing the net, they're doing things, they could be paying their mortgage. Do you actually take a look and see who's in there? Do you know what they're doing? Are they just being harmless internet users? Or is this guy sitting in the room having an espresso and hacking your PC while you're sitting there drinking your coffee? It's actually a lot easier than you think. This is actually me sitting with a laptop. I'm actually running some scans in a coffee house at a Starbucks. And I'm actually running a scan. I can see the other users on the network. I can see what they're doing. And yes, I actually wore a hacker t-shirt. I am a certified ethical hacker after all. I wouldn't want someone to think I was being unethical. From there, I was actually running different applications. I was able to see everything that was going on in the network, where people were going, what websites they were viewing, were they paying their mortgage, were they on Facebook? I could see that information. I could take this a step further and run a device much like this one. It's a Wi-Fi Pineapple. This kind of device allows me to play man in the middle on your wireless traffic. I can pretend to be an access point that you trust. You connect to it. You think you're surfing the net through a harmless internet connection. What you're actually doing is surfing through the hacker's laptop or their computer system, and everything you see, everything you type, browse to, enter, email, is all visible by the hacker. They can see it with a device like this. You can buy one online for about $100. Here's how it works. I set up the access point to mirror a different connection, much like a hotel wireless, for example. And how many of you take it where? Do you go into the hotel, you get on the wireless, you think it's secure, you think it's trusted. But is the guy in the next room got a Wi-Fi Pineapple and scanning everything that you're doing? Are you actually connected to that hotel Wi-Fi, or are you connected to the hacker? Some people travel a little heavy with their technology. For example, this is actually my hotel room. You can see here I have multiple firewalls, laptops, and a Wi-Fi Pineapple set up, and I can see everything that's going on. I can actually detect that information and decipher who's going to what websites. It's actually a little fun sometimes. Curiosity kills. This one's something you want to take advantage of. How many of you actually have a security policy for your company in regards to thumb drives? We saw this in some of the Hollywood clips that came out last year in some of the movies, where they plug in a thumb drive and it compromises a network. All they have to do is plug in that USB key. How easy is that one? Well, in the purpose of doing a demonstration, I went out and bought 30 thumb drives. And I took those thumb drives and I loaded up some interesting files on them. Files that said wife pics, XXX pics, credit and finance, checking access. I set these files up on the thumb drive and then I simply dropped the thumb drive. I'll show you that in a second. What happens when someone clicks on one of these links, it actually takes them to a nice little website and says, hey, you should know better. You shouldn't do things like this. You could have been hacked. By the way, you may want to run anti-malware right now. Since this thumb drive was left out in the open, I don't know what else has been put on it. So again, an ethical hacker, I was being nice, trying to educate, show them what happens when they click on it, right? So where did I leave these thumb drives? Up on the restroom counter, next to the napkin dispenser at a restaurant or a coffee house, on the on the picnic table out front, or on the actual table as I got up when I left my laptop there, got in the bag, left in the car, left the thumb drive on the table. People found it, dropped them in airports, dropped them in an elevator in a business park. It's really that simple. Now, when people pick these thumb drives up and then they go and connect it, I can actually see that they connected to websites. So I dropped 30 thumb drives, and you'll see here I had 67 hits. Think about that. 30 thumb drives, 67 hits. That means they didn't just go to one file, they went to more than one. Or they dropped it and someone else picked it up. I could have infected 67 different networks or systems. And by looking at this next little map, I can see exactly where the users were. Now, I'm based down here in Florida, so I was able to see, obviously, that most of the hits were down here, but you can see other hits like Nevada, you can see Maine, you can see South Carolina, you can see Delaware. Those could all be different networks that were compromised by a simple thumb drive. Is your network secure? Are you checking thumb drives when they connect to your network? Food for thought. Next thing I'm going to talk about is the darknet, the onion network, or the darknets as they're called. Some people say, oh, that's just Hollywood, or that's the news media spinning tales. No, actually, it's just that bad. It's actually a lot worse than a lot of them let on. The darknets exist in a different kind of web sphere, if you will, where users, unless you know how to get there, you're not going to get there. You're not going to stumble across it in Google, for example. You use different applications to connect to this darknet. And once you're on the darknet, you can find anything. Simple search engine inside this network will allow me to find any kind of resource, illegal or otherwise, that I want. Things like passports. If I want to become a resident of a different country, it's relatively easy. I can generate a fake passport and have it delivered to me at any time. Or look for stolen credit card numbers. Right? Here's actual credit card numbers displayed here with all the information you need. You can buy them in bulk. Again, remember, $10 for a low-level credit card, $20 for a gold. Drugs, not a problem. Any candy store you want, they've got it online. And of course, other things that get really dark, like contract killers, also online. They actually have rules, though. I found this one was really interesting. They said no child under the age of 16 and no top 10 politician, all for the price of 16 bitcoins. Not a whole lot. Thank you very much for your time today, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you learned something from this presentation.